This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
If you've watched the Amy Bradley documentary on Netflix, you probably have a lot of questions. And so do we. So we're going to talk about it here and break this thing down into four different parts. We're going to talk about the vanishing point, basically, breaking down the timeline and what doesn't add up about it. We're going to talk about the theories that are still floating out there and the ones that really you can punch holes in and it looks like Swiss cheese. And then the sightings, we'll talk about that. Coincidence, a cry for help. Was it her out there? What did it all mean? And what now? Who's accountable? We're going to break it all down into four different sections. Carol Hughes and myself, as we're going to discuss this Amy Bradley case. It all begins, if you hadn't heard about this yet or watched the Netflix special, here's the very quick cliff notes. She was last seen on a cruise ship balcony just before sunrise. 45 minutes later, she was gone. There was no sign of struggle, no splash in the water, no CCTV footage, not a single damn clue. And this chapter that we're unpacking here, the exact timeline of events and exposing the gaps, those maddening blank spots where accountability should have been, we're going to ask the questions. You know, the Royal Caribbean never seemed to be in a rush for an answer. Like, who was awake? Who knew before they were supposed to? And how the hell does a passenger disappear from a floating hotel without triggering an all-hands-on emergency? So let's get into the moments that made the vanishing possible and maybe preventable. She was just gone. She was gone out of nowhere. The timeline shows they went to bed. She was out on the balcony. Everybody gets up. She's not there anymore. There's so many pieces to this. Carol, I mean, what's been the most suspicious detail in this timeline that has stood out to you?
Well, there's a couple things that bother me about this. One is actually, you just mentioned the way Royal Caribbean handled it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if someone did fall off the ship accidentally or intentionally or whatever, there would be an emergency. We hear about that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there was recently a man and his young daughter, she had fallen off the ship and he jumped and actually saved her, and both of them made it.
Mm-hmm.
That ship didn't just go, okay, well, don't tell anybody, we're just going to keep on going.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't just go ahead and dock and start letting people off the ship. I just felt like their response to it was very much like, yeah, she's on here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't take it as the emergency that it really was. Mm-hmm. That really bothers me.
And that's where I wonder, I mean, did they... Because, look, people on these cruise ships, they're going to say, I can't find so-and-so. They're missing. I'm sure this happens all the time. And they turn up. They turn up, you know, within a matter of, you know, hours. They did have 2,000 some passengers that were about ready to disembark for their day, and they were on there ready to go. Should Royal have said, nobody's getting off the ship till we find this person? Or... I would imagine at that moment in time, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, Royal thought, this is another one of the many, you know, I can't find my daughter. We don't know where she is. Well, she's an adult. Maybe she was out partying. Maybe she hooked up with somebody last night. And you just, I mean, I'm guessing that's kind of what Royal was thinking. And that's why they didn't make this a holy shit, because the gravity of the situation was not known at that time. And it wasn't known by the family either to know that they're never going to see her again. At that moment, it was just like, it was a couple hours. They knew that she was gone. I don't know. I'm not shocked that Royal Caribbean did what they did.
And I'm not sure of the timeline of when exactly they told Royal Caribbean.
Well, here it is. Let me lay that out for you. So 5:15 was the last confirmed sighting. Amy's father, Ron, woke up briefly, sees Amy sleeping on the balcony lounge chair, closes his eyes and goes back to sleep. So she goes out there later in the early morning hours and goes to sleep on the balcony. So that's 5:15. At 6 a.m., Ron wakes up again and discovers that Amy is missing. her flip-flops, her ID card, the cabin key, they're still in the room, which is rather odd because if you're going to
And
leave
there's
your
a
room,
shirt
yeah,
that she was wearing that's laid on a chair in the room.
only her cigarettes and lighter are gone.
Just strange.
The family immediately began searching the ship. They were checking the public decks and the infirmary, everything. 6:30 a.m., the family reports that she's missing. So there's your timestamp there.
Okay.
At
So at
6:30 a.m.
6:30,
Yep.
I don't think they were disembarking yet.
They
might
were
have
getting
started
ready to.
Disembarking at 7 or 8.
So
You don't
we're-
usually get off the
so
ship at 6.
The ship gets noticed at 6:30 a.m., okay? It's not like person's been missing for a day or two at sea. 6:30 a.m. they're known. Like they're getting ready for disembarking. I mean, everything is in place. The disembarking probably hasn't started, but
No,
they're working and they're
ship is
about
not
ready to
moving.
go. Yeah, they're ready to go. This is where you're at dock at port and you're looking out and you're seeing everybody on the dock working and doing their stuff. Things are coming and going off the ship. So things are coming and going off the ship at that point in time before official disembarking, which I think is important in the conversation. So they notified them and they requested a full lockdown and public announcement. Now, you can request whatever you'd like, but you only noticed an hour and a half ago that your daughter was missing. An adult was missing. I think it might be a bit of a steep request to request the full ship to go on straight lockdown at that second. They have policies for it, and right or wrong, they do of what they are. But I think that's a bit of a reach, considering she's an adult. If it was a minor child, I think you have a different situation going on.
But yes, understand that point. I do think there is a possibility that she could have gone overboard.
Yes.
That's why I think that now I think today maybe the ship would take that much more seriously.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know if in 1998 it was like,
But-
come on, things were different back then.
But the set that the idea that, okay, well, let's say she did go overboard. Why would Royal Caribbean then stop everyone from disembarking and going on their excursions and everything?
Well, I think, you'd want to like investigate this. Is
Well, they
she
did.
really
And
off the ship?
And then they did start looking around they did investigate, but I mean, it took time to kind of get all that stuff
Yeah.
in order. They can't just be like, press a
And it
button,
is
here comes the
tough. You've
divers,
Yeah, you've got thousands of people.
Yeah, that are wanting to go and do their thing, and they don't know anything about this. It would possibly cause some mass panic if you were to go on the ship's system and say, by the way, there's a person that's missing and we're not leaving the ship. It would turn the ship into a game of Clue, and rumors would start, and oh my God, there's a killer on board, even though that's not remotely what they would have announced, and it would have caused panic. I'm not trying to stick up for Royal Caribbean here, but I'm just sticking up for the timeline of events. This was right as they're getting ready to disembark people. People are probably getting in line already for this because they want to be the first ones off the boat. Again, this was within like an hour and a half of this happening of disembarkation. So I don't think it was crazy that they disembarked the ship. Again, had this person been missing for like the last day or two or something at sea, and they're like, okay, I think you might have had a very different story on your hands. But I really feel as easy and as much as you want to find the villain immediately and go, you screwed up here, I don't know that they did at that moment in time.
This just popped into my head. By allowing people to disembark, knowing that information that someone's missing,
You could be finding that person too.
You're making sure that she's not one of the people disembarking.
Yeah.
Because she would have scanned her card just like she did to get into her room. You have to do that to get off the ship. And it could also alert if somebody's taking off a large suitcase and they're going to St. Martin or wherever they were going, it would be like, okay, there's a person with a large suitcase. Let's, and it could have given him some necessary information by allowing people to disembark.
Well, and at the end of the day here, they scanned through everybody who went off the ship. So they didn't see her there. But let me just finish it.
Let me exit, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
But so they scanned everybody that got off the ship. And then that allowed them to do a thorough search of the ship with less people on it. So if
True.
there's someone out there, they were able to do that by 12:15.
But they also had cleaned their room.
Yes.
That was weird that they were allowed to clean the room.
But at that moment in time, nobody is thinking this is something that extreme.
Obviously.
That's it. It's not anyone's mind. She's only been missing for a few hours on a cruise ship, and she's an adult, and she was out, partying and drinking the night before. It's not crazy to think she's in someone else's room, passed out.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a ridiculous idea. I'd be worried just like that family is, but again, I don't think it would be cause to, completely stop everybody from getting off the ship. And I think the ship made the right call by sorting through the people that went off, then allowed them to look in everything. So by 12:15, it's not like the cruise ship didn't do their job to an acceptable, I would think, extent at the beginning. By 7:50, it took him a while to get the announcement out. I will say that. And it was very, would Amy Bradley please come to the purser's desk? Passengers are already disembarking for Curacao at that moment. So no security measures are implemented to stop passengers or crew from leaving. But like you said, they're going through a checkpoint to get out and off the ship. Mm-hmm. So you would get that. 12:15, the crew begins the official search. And this is, I forget what it's called officially on a cruise ship, but it is something. And it's where they have to basically search every inch of the ship, every cabin, everything. And every person on board, every crew member has an area that they are assigned to be looking into. So they did that. And she's not found on board. It wasn't just let's just stroll through the casino and see if somebody's, passed out underneath the roulette table. It's a thorough search. When they could not find her that way, again, this is 12:15. So we're talking within a few hours of all this going down that they did do all this. They didn't say, well, maybe, in a few days we'll do that search. They did it within a few hours.
And it could have been easier with a lot of passengers. Not everybody gets off the ship, but a lot of passengers did.
It'd be far easier with less people on board. Yeah. So that's how they did it. And then the captain notified the FBI and the Coast Guard. So that is how the initial part of all of that went down. Now, there's a lot more to it, obviously, as the search began, and then the cruise ship departs, and we'll go through all of that as we continue on here. There's just so many questions about the beginning of this. At the end, now that you know the timeline, and it's not like over sensationalized in a Netflix doc, does it make more sense that to not be outraged at Carnival or at Royal Caribbean at that moment in time? I think there's other slip ups later, so I'm not completely saying you're all off the hook. But I think initially, I don't know what more appropriate reaction would have been given the circumstances at that moment.
And I just think that there was a high possibility. There should have been considered to be a high possibility that she went over.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm assuming they looked around there. But, as far as searching the ship and everything, I think they did what, because that did allow them to say, no, but she got off the ship at 8:25.
Yeah.
It would have been some good information for them, actually. To know that her card was not scanned to leave the ship.
Yeah.
And I think employees kind of have to go through a similar process as far as getting off the ship. Mm-hmm. Because that's a thing. If she did get off the ship, which is obviously a theory, it would have had to been through another way that they're not scanned. Or the only thing I could think of to get off the ship would be like an employee had somehow stuffed her into an oversized bag. How else are you going to get her off the ship?
And I got some thoughts on that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. the what ifs and
Yeah.
all of that.
But I do think that they did what they could.
Yeah, and just, I mean, look here more at the timeline. On the 24th, this happened on March 24th. The Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard launched a 4-day sea and air search using helicopters and planes. So the same day that they went and said, she's missing, you have helicopters and planes out looking. So that's, I think I'd be happy that you got this. The U.S. Coast Guard joined the FBI and the investigation. Royal Caribbean chartered a private boat to help with search efforts. And they searched over 200 square miles between Aruba and Curacao. No evidence was found, no body, no clothing, no debris. They looked, they dived, they did everything by the ship too. Then the 25th, well, it's time to leave port, and the Rhapsody of the Seas left port with all passengers except for the Bradley family. They stayed back. The FBI began interviewing passengers and crew at the ship's next stops at Saint Martin and Saint Thomas. And the man, the guy that she was dancing with and hanging out with the night before, who's known as Yellow. He's the band member that was in the lounge earlier. He is questioned by the FBI and reportedly passes a polygraph. Then on the 26th, the Bradleys are still in Curacao, distributing flyers and searching on land. A taxi driver reported seeing Amy that morning near the cruise terminal. So this is like one of the first sightings reported of Amy, like immediately. Asking urgently for a phone. Curacao police and the FBI followed up, but they didn't ever get any solid leads. In April of 98, there was a possible encounter when, while in Curacao, a person believed he heard Amy's voice yelling his name from a passing van. He and Ron Brad believed that. He and Ron chased the vehicle down, but they only found a man driving. And then there was other sightings as well that go on through time where some believe that she was trafficked. There was a man that went in and found out this woman's name. She said who she was, and he didn't want to get in trouble. And he was a U.S. Navy petty officer, so he never reported it. And that was back in January of 99. So that's a bit of the timeline of what happened, and we didn't go into all of the sightings there yet, but we'll continue to go into that as we break this down a bit more. I mean, what are your thoughts there on that timeline? I mean, do you think she was alive? Do you think the idea that she drowned and people are just making bad IDs on people out there?
That could be. I mean, you hear of that all the time in missing persons cases.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I saw that person. You know, whenever anybody's missing, they get hundreds of tips. I saw them here or there, and you know, they track down the tips, and frequently they're not correct. The people on the documentary seemed very convincing to me. I thought that they really felt like they saw her. One other thing too is at that time that she went missing, between like 5:30, 6 a.m. somewhere in there. That ship would have been so close to port, if not at port.
Yeah,
they would have been really close. So had she gone over, I would think she would have been found.
And yeah, I don't think they would have been far out at sea based on the timeline.
Yeah, I think it would be different if they had Fun Day at Sea and she's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
but they would have been pretty close to the dock. I think they would have found her.
I agree, and the more convincing part of anything, it's the identifications of her that people have had. Or suspected sightings of her, the same tattoos. That's a key part. It's one thing to go, oh, this person resembles that person, maybe. I feel like from day to day, I kind of resemble the person I looked like yesterday, and like it all, we all change a bit. But if you got those tattoos and it really looks like the similar person, you very likely have the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing about this case.
But the one thing that I'm just totally stumped by is if she did not go over, how did she get off the ship? Because you and me couldn't get off the ship without scanning our card. We can't go to some employee exit and they're really close by where we exit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's on the other side of the ship. They'd be walking out into water.
Yeah.
So it's usually just really close, but they also have to get scanned because they need to know what employees left the ship that day. So it's a similar process for them to get off the ship.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.